Steven, I think they're ready for us. You ready?
Yep.
Let's get it. So what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of We Got Next. We have two special guests on today. I am your co-host of the show, Hayes, aka AO Shifty, and my first special guest is my co-host who is back. Steven is with us. And then we have AG from Signing Day. And we'll get into both of the people that are on the show because they're both going to bring very different things to the show today. For starters, as always, thank you for always liking and subscribing to the different videos we have. I want to also let everyone know that we are going to be starting a Twitter Spaces that is more than likely going to be on Mondays. And what it's going to do is go into the different Solana NFTs, as you all probably have heard. And I get into this in the cryptocurrency aspect, but OpenSea is going to integrate Solana NFTs, which is a big thing. So since I have some connections within the Solana NFT space, and I do a lot of different whitelists over there, I want to start to highlight them and bring a different aspect. This is not going to be your 2 to 3 hour Twitter Spaces or your YouTube video that you see from a lot of others. No shade to them because I watch them all, but it'll probably be shorter just to give you all the information, and then you guys can get to ask questions. But before we continue, what's going to be happening with the quick slants?
Yeah, I got to get back in the swing of things first. I guess I'll just give a little bit of update on my personal self, and then dive into the quick slants. So my entire household was I guess more so battling COVID for like the last month. You can probably hear it in my voice. So we're all like past it, but still like, building back up to getting back to normal life. Kids are hopefully going back to school next Monday, like, because once one tests positive, you got to wait like 10 days, and it's just like, it's never ending. So I've had you keep asking me every week if I'm up for it, and I'm just like, I just can't. Like, I have no, like, once this time hits, usually like last week, up until this point, I've just been so tired. So getting back in the swing of things now with the quick slants. There's a lot to talk about. I'm gonna try and put one out before the Final Four this weekend. That's a big story with Carolina Duke. That's awesome. Big game there for everybody. No one wanted to see St. Peter's play Duke. Everyone wanted to see Carolina play Duke. So we got what we wanted.
I don't know about that. I'm gonna interrupt you and say I would have loved to see St. Peter's be the end of Coach K's career.
that part of it, that part would have been great if Shaheen Holloway would taken the boys and knocked out. I think like it could have been like your local YMCA team knocking out Coach K, and people would have been happy about it. So, but me being a Carolina guy, big fan about that. So that's cool. Masters is coming up. It's probably one of my favorite sporting events of the year. The homie Tiger might be playing. He's there in Augusta. The flight tracker was on him, so they were making sure that he was going to Augusta, and he walked the course and did all that kind of good stuff. So spring practice for Penn State kicked off. So obviously very pumped about that. Talk about that. It would just wrap up. Bruce Arians just saw he is retiring.
Breaking news.
Moving to the front office. You heard it here first. So there's a lot to talk about. So I'll catch everybody up in the last 3 weeks of sports, dive into the NBA playoffs, which the Lakers are not going to be in the playoffs.
They're right there going.
So LeBron just has to play 3 more games though to qualify for the scoring title. So that's all that matters about that. So lots to talk about, but we'll get into it. Hopefully pull one out before this weekend, and then next week we'll start ramping up again.
Yeah. So Steven did bring up something with LeBron, and we would have touched on it last week. But when we get into the sports aspect, we do want to end up touching on the Lakers-Wizards game that Steven and I got to see. And then I want to compare that to the game I went to last night with the Chicago Bulls and then the Washington Wizards, because it was 2 different contrasts, and we'll touch on that in a second. Getting into the crypto and stock aspect of things, as always, everyone knows that each month I end up trying to put out 2 stocks that you all should look for the long term. And then also I put in the beginning of the year, like my stock of the year, and it was NVIDIA. And then of course we had NVIDIA and Edward Life Sciences for January. And then in February, we put out 2 more. Etsy was one of them. And then this month coming up for April, the 2 that are going to be there are Square and Microsoft. Microsoft is just always one that you guys should always have within your portfolios. Again, Stephen always says it. This is not financial advice. If you want to go talk to a financial advisor, I can go give you their numbers. But other than that, this is just me spinning things off the top of my head. And then Square. So Square, aka Block, was sitting at less than $100. And then it did have a bounce when it was between the $85 to $90 mark. And it has bounced, and now it's sitting at over $130. And it's still sitting far below its all-time highs. So if this is something that you can hold on to long-term, again, I don't do anything short and quick. If you want to do something short and quick, you should probably do options, futures, and margins and things like that. But looking at those two, the first thing I want to talk about is I really have to say shout out to the Solana NFT community. Big reason for that is a lot of them have been holding on and waiting for a long time in regards to this OpenSea news. Some people supposedly had information and were leaking it, but the important part about it is some of the notable ones like Kets on Crack, for everyone out there in that community, I told everyone I'm holding on to mine until we hit 100 floor price for Solana. So I will continue to do that. D-Gods is another one that'll be listed on OpenSea. Soul Gods, Solana Money Boys, Sweets, and then of course Degenerate Ape Academy, Yaku, and there's so many more. It was about like 25 to 30. You guys can look it up online, but it was exciting information. If you also looked at the volume spike within a lot of those different NFTs, it did go up. D-Gods, it did not. Reason being, it's already sitting at like a 95 Solana floor price, which is over $11,000. So that's a little tougher for it to flip like that. But that's something that is exciting. AG, what are your thoughts when you hear information about different projects going over to OpenSea with all the volume they have there?
I think it's great for any chain to be listed and get more exposure. I think that's in general, one of the things that is so amazing about these chains is the composability aspect. And it is interesting, I think you get into the OpenSeas, which to some degree are gatekeeping a little bit, saying, hey, we're only going to list a few of these here and there. It's actually one of the big reasons that we chose with our project to launch on Ethereum, simply because we felt like it had the most exposure to the broadest number of marketplaces, over time. And obviously that's changing. And I think that's a great thing overall to start to see. I think the more access people have to the projects they find interesting or exciting, the better off we all are kind of in the Web3 community.
Yeah, and so this is just a start for everyone out there. Solana is just the second biggest NFT community and community space that's there. I have started to dive somewhat into like the Cardano NFTs. It's not nearly as much volume as Solana and definitely not as much volume as Ethereum. I promise you can go on there and end up buying some of their NFTs for like $10, $20. It's not really that much. And then Terra Luna, they have NFTs that are out there too. Near Protocol is starting to create NFTs as well. So this is just the start. Something I always have thought about in regards to like the Ethereum NFTs, they allow all of them to be listed there, but Solana has to start with a certain amount. So you will start to wonder, are they just going to continue to hype up Magic Eden and the Magic Eden will get more volume from this, or will more projects be able to be listed on Ethereum? Other part that a lot of people have to figure out and wonder is just do your research on the rugs. So rug pulls happen on any blockchain. You have to do your research. You can't just listen to your influencers that say, we're about to buy this. I was telling Stephen before, like there was one company that I reached out to them to see if they wanted to be on the show, and I'm not going to say their name, and they blocked me, and their price after mint price dropped. So you can kind of guess and tell if you guys know the Solana ecosystem, which one it is. I will say it was a very hyped up project and it did fall. But the next thing I wanted to get into is there's another person competing for Michael Saylor's spot as the #1 OG in buying Bitcoin, and that is the founder of Luna. So he actually bought $1.4 billion worth of Bitcoin during the 2022 year. But Michael Saylor said he's not going to be topped, and he ended up buying $205 million of Bitcoin. So the next thing, my question for you, AG, is what are then your thoughts on when you still hear people buying Bitcoin? Do you feel it's still a bullish sentiment, or do you end up feeling like people should be purchasing other things, or is it just noise?
I guess I would say it's what are you buying it for? And I think so much of it goes to the reason and utility behind it. If you're looking for store of value, great, go buy Bitcoin. If you're looking for an asset to basically park currency. I think the thing I'm really excited about and I'm more bullish on is application layer chains. The chains that unlock the ability to build on top of them and expand their utility. And that's what you see with the Solana communities and the Ethereum communities is sort of using this technology and, backed by these currencies to actually accomplish a goal or a mission, and kind of build a larger business on top of and add more utility to the currency itself, which inherently drives up the value of those currencies. So I tend to look at, kind of what can be built on top of these chains and who is building on top of these chains when I think about the value of certain currencies.
Mm-hmm. So, Steven, I'm gonna give you the alley-oop. You want to ask your famous question?
Yeah. So, AG, the whole cryptocurrency world is still foreign to me. So I let Christian do his thing, and I kind of just, over time, we've been doing this for getting close to a year, coming up on it. But I when we had people on, and then they start talking about that kind of stuff, I'll sit here and I'll just kind of pay attention and just try and soak it all in. And Christian and I have had conversations about the crypto world and everything, but it seems like one of my favorite world famous questions is, and there's a couple other ones, but this is one I always go with, revolving around Bitcoin and just cryptocurrency in general. It's been around for a while, right? Where I guess not a while, but it's been around long enough that a lot of people know about it now and they've done their research on it. And whether you're on one end of the spectrum or the other one, like me and Christian are, about it. And
Yep.
The name, you hear it. But why do you think it's becoming more and more of a thing to really dive into now than when it came out, 5-6 years ago, when it kind of started to bubble up? Is it because there's just more avenues to go down with it? Is it because social media, just the media in general, people are talking about it all the time? Your boys are talking about it, your neighbor Frank's talking about it, everybody's talking about it for one reason or another, whether they know a lot about it or not. So it's why do you think now or over the last couple of years it's become what it is? What do you think is one of the couple factors that has become what it is?
Yeah, I would say the explosion in utility. To me, that is the number one thing that.
And for people who don't know, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's that, what can I do with this? I think when Bitcoin first came out, it was sort of this, cool, it's a currency, what can I do with it? Maybe I can buy things. Oh, but no one takes Bitcoin. Okay, that kind of makes this not as valuable to me. That was kind of the one utility that was very apparent early on with Bitcoin. Now you look at coins like Ethereum and Solana and you start to say, okay, what utility do I have with those? Now, instead of saying, hey, I can buy physical goods, and that was sort of the Bitcoin promise, right? You can buy a pizza with Bitcoin. Kind of ridiculous. But you get into Ethereum and you start to say, okay, the utility is I can buy these digital goods. And these digital goods have their own value to them, whether they're, hey, I love this art and I'm a collector, or, hey, I get access to this community of people that I find really interesting and can now, meet and converse with and talk about, kind of things that, that the community is interested in learning about. Is it, I get access to events? Is it that I get, access to new collectibles or the ability to buy certain merch here and there? I think the utility aspect of it has really just exploded to say, what can I do with these coins I have? I'm not just sitting on them as if they're investment vehicles. The utility is I can actually, there's enough stuff built out on top of these ecosystems that I can actually do things with them. I can go play games with them. I can go, meet people with them. It sort of created an entire new ecosystem. And I think that's why you've seen this shift in branding from what is, kind of the cryptocurrency world to Web3, because Web3 really encapsulates, hey, it's this entire world that, people are participating in, and it's backed by the technology of cryptocurrency. But really, that's not the main reason that people are transacting in cryptocurrency. It just happens to be that, it unlocks and enables all these experiences. So that's what utility means to me.
And then second question, and this I asked to people too. When did you start getting into Bitcoin in general? And was there a particular reason? Like, I know, going back to what I just said, like, a lot of people in your circle might be into it. So you're like, hey, what the hell? Like, I'll do it. Like, I'll dive into it. Was it one of those reasons, or was there, multiple reasons why you wanted to, kind of dive into things?
I think as someone who's always been interested in new technologies, I love just trying things out and testing out what's new to kind of think about how I might utilize them for problems that I care about solving.
Sure.
So initially, I started investing in some coins just because I wanted to, some exposure to it as a forcing function to learn about it. Mm-hmm. I think one of the big things, if you own something, you're more likely to spend the time to learn about it. And that was a good way for me to force myself to really understand the technology. It was say, great, I'm going to buy some of this. And then I kind of, let it sit for a little while and watched it and treated it almost like a stock. And there was a moment actually, that was a number of years. And there was a moment recently, I would say actually in maybe August of last year, where something clicked and a switch flipped. And that was when Loot dropped. And Loot, for those who don't know, is an NFT project where basically someone just said, hey, here's 8,000 NFTs that have, these specific fantasy game items written on them. Go do what you will with them. Go build on top of this. Go use these however you might want. And there's an entire community that exploded on top of these and started building experiences and derivatives on top of them and saying, hey, let's build games. Let's build characters. Let's build lore. Let's build a universe here. And, I think that's when it clicked for me that there's so much more you can do if you kind of have these primitives. And I think that's the, kind of the moment for me where I started getting far more involved in the space was when I started to realize what you could do with all of these things, not just treating them like investment vehicles.
Sure. Yeah. There's always that extra step of like, you might be into something, but there's always like that extra thing that comes along that really pushes you over the top and really, whether it's stocks or, anything really, I guess, that kind of pushes you over the top and makes you dive into it a little more than you already were, or more than you thought you were going to. So I was a journalism major, so the hard-hitting questions is what I do.
Keep them coming, man. That's kind of why I think you'll learn. I'm very long-winded, and
that's why Christian brought me on here to ask all the questions. Yeah.
I hope we keep them coming. I mean, honestly, I'm hoping by the end of this, you're a convert and you start to see, maybe as someone who's not into cryptocurrency, you can start to see the utility at least of saying, hey, maybe this unlocks solutions to problems you care about. I think that's really what we're trying to do, is bridge that gap between, real world problems that as sports fans we're frustrated about, and saying, okay, great, how can we use this ecosystem to help solve those problems? What's a creative way for us to approach it?
I think when I start asking these questions, that's what everyone's goal is by the end of the show, that I can recite something back to them maybe. Now they don't come out and say it like you just did. So I think now there's more pressure on me to become a expert by the end of the show. So I'm really paying attention now.
I can't tell if you're being facetious or not.
No, I'm being serious about that one. I'm always being serious.
I think a takeaway, if by the end of the show, you have an understanding of what problem we set out to solve and roughly the mechanic we're using to solve it. Take cryptocurrency out of it and just say, all right, do I understand that new market mechanic? And is it interesting? And that I think is the goal for me. It's less sell you on cryptocurrency and sell you on the project itself and the
All
goal
right.
of the project itself.
Well, let's go.
So
Let's do it.
the final story we
thrown down.
the final story we have, because Stephen brought up a deeper dive and like doing more research, is actually a company that a lot of people thought they did enough research on, which is Axie Infinity. And the Ronin Network suffered a $625 million hack. And the Ronin Network's price actually dropped 20 to 25% the day that it happened. Personally, before I ask for AG's thoughts, it's something that, since the space is still new, hacks are going to happen at times. The biggest goal is to, one, minimize them, but also a lot of this auditing is a big thing, making sure you're looking over the code a bunch of times, making sure you are trying to figure out something every single day. What is wrong with the code? I know some blockchains and some layer twos, they'll do like hackathons and things of that nature, but $625 million is a lot. AG, what are your thoughts?
Man, I think it's just a good reminder that we're on the frontier with a lot of this stuff. I think that's my big takeaway is, like you said, auditing contracts is great, but we're not all engineers. We can't all read, code. And frankly, the exploit, I don't know if you looked deeply into it, but it seemed like it was maybe not even discoverable just through a basic audit, of the contract. But I think for me, it's just a warning sign that you do have to be careful, and you do really have to trust the networks you're participating in, and the contracts you're interacting with. But stay vigilant.
Yeah. So we're going to switch gears and move into the middle ground of what we're going to do during this episode. And every single time, Stephen and I normally end up wearing a jersey or some sort of sports team, whether it's a hat, shirt, jersey, something like that. And today I end up wearing Tracy McGrady. I wore Tracy McGrady today because if this company that we're about to talk about was around when Tracy McGrady was in high school, he might have gone to college. You never really know. If NIL was around, he might have gone to college. Do we know that? Who knows? But we have signing day and AG here today. So thank you so much for being here with us, AG.
Thanks for having me. Love the T-Mac reference. I definitely had his shoes growing up. They were my high school basketball shoes for those T-Macs. I still remember them fondly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Who doesn't, dude? Those were killer shoes, man. Killer.
Oh, so good. I think they made me jump higher too.
So this is a conversation that I was looking forward to. I remember when AG and I were first talking, and I thought about Stephen with this because Stephen went to Penn State, and NIL is, of course, a big thing up there, but also you hear about different athletes and with NIL. So can you tell everybody a little bit about what signing day is and what the purpose of it is?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll try to keep this brief, but I think it's important to start with kind of where the idea came from. And really, as I think everyone knows, July last year, the NCAA basically waved the white flag and said, all right, college athletes, you win. You are allowed to profit off your name, image, likeness. We are not allowed to get in the way. Teams aren't allowed to pay you. Schools aren't allowed to pay you. But if you want to go sign sponsorship deals, we can't stop you. Now, that's a huge win for athletes, and we all cheered that on. And then we started to see what was happening with a lot of the deals, and they were consolidating to the top 0.1% of these athletes. The quarterbacks at the Power 5 schools were getting these massive deals. And then you look at them, we were hearing these stories of kids saying, oh yeah, I signed this deal. I got a free t-shirt out of it. Or, oh, I got, a week supply of bubble gum. These are like real stories we heard where people are like, oh, I got a $50 gift card to a restaurant. And it frustrated us. It felt like these kids, the rules changed and they were still getting taken advantage of. And they didn't have the path. The 99.9% of these kids didn't have a path to actually capitalize on the new rules. And so we said, okay, great. How can we solve that? What can we do as fans sitting here frustrated? What can we build? We're builders at heart. What can we build? And so we decided to build Signing Day, which basically said, instead of companies being the ones to get athletes their first NIL deals, what if it was fans? What if every fan was able to sponsor a college athlete directly and say, you know what? I love watching them play. I want to put money in their pockets right now. Let me go sponsor them. And so that's what we built. And this is where I think, you know, the utility aspect of blockchains comes into play. Is that mechanic is really hard in the old world. How do you actually do that? What are you actually, you know, kind of building? And so what we actually built in the Web3 space was a smart contract that lets fans sponsor the athlete, and it stores those sponsorship funds directly in the contract and says, great, if the athlete wants to come sign, they can collect the money directly out of that smart contract. And what do you have to do to quote unquote sign with your fans? Well, you got to give them your autograph. You have to acknowledge that their sponsorship support with your autograph. And what that does really is, you know, kind of helps athletes understand, hey, I can take control of my name by signing with my fans. I own my name. I can do things with it. I have agency to control it. And guess what? I'm going to stamp it on the NFTs of my fans, give them my autograph in exchange for the sponsorship money they put up. And so that's really what the first season of Signing Day is all about, is fans sponsoring players in the NCAA tournament in exchange for their autograph. That's at a fundamental level. I'll stop there and kind of hit me with your questions about that you want to dig deeper into hearing that.
I gotta think of some. I was too busy paying attention on that one I'll process everything, and then I'll trust me. I'll have plenty of questions at the end of this.
So I guess my first question, because I'll tackle from the cryptocurrency side, with you all being built on Ethereum, how will that be affected with either the people sponsoring or the athletes themselves receiving the money with the gas fees?
Yeah, I think, you know, it was a trade-off that we considered when we built this out, and there are gas fees associated with the sponsorships, and they're higher on Ethereum than they are on Solana. The reason we did it on Ethereum is really we believed in the composability aspect of the Ethereum chain, and we have this longer-term vision and this larger vision of athletes really owning their name, image, and likeness assets within this blockchain, where they can actually compose them and license them and use them across projects, across kind of collaborations with other athletes, with other artists, with musicians, with other creators within this whole space. And so we actually felt like Ethereum posed the greatest potential for that kind of cross-project composability. Which is why we basically said, you know what, for this first one, let's try it out here. There will be, you know, a gas cost to it, but we think over time we can optimize the gas costs. And frankly, with some of the move, you know, to proof of stake on Ethereum, we think gas costs are going to come down long-term. With a long-term vision, we didn't want to hamstring ourselves by picking a chain solely based on gas costs.
Mm. All right, so I got one now. So we'll just use Penn State for all the examples here, because that's what I know best. So if you're doing this for Penn State, you know, we'll just use Penn State football players because NIL is, you know, that's what it is. It's football basically.
Does it have to be though?
It doesn't have to be, no, but obviously
I'll throw that out there provocatively. That I think one of the things we're trying to change is every athlete should have an opportunity to make money in this world.
Sure.
Right now it happens to be football, but
sure,
that doesn't have to be our ceiling.
Right. And yeah, in terms of the tiers of those athletes who will, I guess in the long run, I get benefit more of it because more of those donors love to totally shell the money out for football, especially in those southern states, as we all know. But if you're like, if you guys are like working with Penn State football, like how are you attracting the players to do this? Like, you know, some of them might be, I'm sure they're all, not all, but I'm sure a majority of the players on the team, the older guys, are, you know, getting well versed with NIL stuff, and Penn State just signed with a company to kind of, you know, be their own knowledgeable source of things, all, you know, NIL related. But how are you, you know, trying to gravitate, you know, the players to you guys, and then kind of vice versa?
Yeah, I think that's where the magic of the fan side demand comes from. is the thing that attracts athletes, a pot of money sitting in a smart contract with their name on it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, money talks.
Mhm.
If fans say, hey, great, we just put up $10,000 for you because we love watching you play, we think you're amazing, and hey, all we're asking for is your autograph here to sign.
Yeah,
that's compelling.
Sure.
I think a good way to look at this is actually, I'll take it to the NCAA tournament because this is a real world story. But we, obviously, St. Peter's was the talk of the town. Doug Eddert is, talk of St. Peter's, and our community kind of said, "Oh wait, this guy is fun. Let's sponsor him." And so he actually ended up getting sponsored so far. I think has 1.4 Ethereum sitting in the smart contract waiting for him. And we tweeted about it and we're like, yo, Doug, you got money waiting. And he slid into our DMs and we've been talking to him and he's interested. And I think, when it comes down to it, the amount of money that can make a difference in an athlete's life in college isn't as significant, I think, as sometimes we think. And I think we see some of these NIL deals getting thrown around at the big schools. $8 million for the Tennessee quarterback, $2 million over here. Paige Bucher is signing $1 million deals. But a few $1,000 makes a huge difference for an athlete being able to eat healthy, being able to pay their rent, being able to focus on being a student. And so I think so much of what we're doing is basically giving fans an outlet to say, hey, you know what? We want to be that support so that you can go be great at your sport. We don't want you to have to go try to figure out how to navigate these NIL waters when you're not going to get the $1 million deal. But hey, your fans can put up a few hundred, a few $1,000 for you. That's meaningful. So from the perspective of attracting athletes, that's where it's coming from. Fan side demand. If fans want to put up money for an athlete, that athlete's going to take notice.
So for everyone out there, just really quick, Ethereum, when AG said 1.4 Ethereum, that equates out to, as of right now, a little over $4,700. So for them to put up that much, and this is someone that plays for St. Peter's, who not as many people knew about for a long time, that does speak volume, especially to get this ball rolling. You had another one, Steven?
Yeah, it's also the whole NIL thing is I'm not gonna say dominating yet, but it will eventually, if it hasn't begun to already. The recruiting circuits for football, basketball is different because it's one and done, which is probably going to change over the next handful of years. But I mean, you're getting these top recruits in the country who, haven't even signed on the dotted line yet anywhere, are, reportedly getting 6-figure, potential 7-figure deals to come to the school. And, Penn State is one of the top football programs in the country. It's not as big as Alabama and Ohio State and USC and schools of that nature with the amount of money that those schools can shell out, from the donors and everything. But, you get a kid from Pennsylvania who's looking at Penn State, but then these other schools come in to sweep them up because they can offer, $500,000 more. And, AG, like you said, like a couple $1,000, shit, a couple $1,000. If you gave me a couple $1,000 today, I'll be happy as shit for that, But, these kids coming out, it doesn't matter like where they're coming from and what their situation is. They can be coming from a super nice neighborhood. They be coming from not a nice neighborhood, but like you give these kids, you put in front of them like, hey, this is what you can make, and this is what you can potentially earn from coming here. That's like, I'm not gonna say it's not fair because these, some of these schools have more money than other schools, but changes the entire landscape and how you got to do things and, how you got to tap into other resources, like maybe pick up the phone and call some of your donors and be like, hey, I know you gave, $20,000 for this, but we might need you to give, a couple of G's more for this.
Well, and I think that, I think that's where you're going to start to see things get real sketchy where
Oh, it already has. I mean, it already
schools
does.
schools can't get involved with it. Technically, they can't get involved with asking donors to basically put up money for athletes to get them to sign at their school.
Yep.
And I think that's what's going to get real hairy real fast. If there's anything that's going to start to get regulated, at the NCAA level, I got to imagine it's these NIL collectives that are basically putting together recruiting funds. But I'll flip something actually that you said, which I think is interesting and something that we've been thinking about. You said, "Oh, well, some of these schools, their donor funds are just so much larger than some of these other schools." But a product like Signing Day, what we do is democratize that giving, democratize donorship to some degree. Because if you actually take this, you say, okay, great, your numbers, you're saying an extra $500,000 is going to get this kid to sign. Well, how many fans need to give $100 to that kid in order to make up that $500 difference or $500,000 difference?
Mm-hmm.
If you can get 5,000 fans to give $100 a piece, that covers the gap.
Yep.
And now let's say, okay, what does a jersey cost? Well, these fans are already spending $100 on the jersey. What if instead of buying the jersey, which benefits the school, what if they could give that money directly to the athlete and be like, damn, I feel good. Not only is this kid going to come to our school because his prospects, making money here, signaled strength, but also I put money in his pocket and I didn't have to, just pay the school a bunch of money for a jersey. I got the kid the money. I think that's a big piece for us is how do you shift the profits from a lot of these these organizations from the school to the players?
It's all about it's really what it comes down to in the NIL stuff is it's all about how much money is going to get us a national title. That's all I care about with Penn State. I don't care who we get. I don't care, how much we got to pay them. I'll chip in to get them.
Do you know how to if tomorrow if someone was like, hey, NIL collective, we're trying to put together a fund, or you hear about a fund, where would you go? What would you do if you were like, I want to participate in some NIL collective? I actually have no idea. Do you know how to join an NIL collective?
I don't, but Christian can confirm this. I have some resources that I can tap into to get those. But I would but that's all shit, dude. That's all I care about. I've told this to Christian and everybody before. I have a pretty good life right now. The only thing that's missing is Penn State winning a national title in football. That's the only thing I want in life. I got 2 great kids, got a wife, house, job, whatever. But I just need Penn State to win a national title soon. And if I got shell out $100 to get the next best thing, the next best, running back, DN, wide receiver, whoever it is, the number 1 prospect in the country. Yeah. Am I gonna think about doing that? Yeah, of course I am.
There you go.
Of course I am.
And I think that's the magic, right? It puts every fan in a position to have some agency and be able to contribute to the success of a player or a team. I think that's magic. That's something that doesn't exist right now. All we can do right now is show up at the game, scream at the TV, buy a jersey. Players aren't seeing any of that money. It's all this sort of maybe silent emotional support, but there's nothing tangible that they can point to say, yeah, these fans have my back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's really cool about kind of what the Web3 world unlocks is that direct fan athlete relationship.
Sure.
So my final question before I break Steven's heart about what team is gonna make sure that Penn State doesn't win it next year, because breaking news came out. AG, I'm a big person on hacking and cyber attacks and stuff. How are you guys handling it in the sense of you already have the funds ready to end up transferring over to the athlete, but there's a breach in the contract or a hack and then the funds get drained out by someone? Have you guys been continuing to protect your code, or how is that happening? Just in case fans want to donate and then they realize there was a hack on signing day or Ethereum.
Yeah. Well, I think the nice thing is you can always check the amount stored in the contract. So you kind of does it all line up and is it above board? I think the transparency aspect is huge. You can go look at the contract. Another thing we did is try to keep the contract as simple as possible when it comes to what what's allowable from a withdrawal mechanism perspective. So basically, the mechanic that we built was that to withdraw funds, the athlete actually is going to receive a one-of-one origin signature NFT that is theirs to their wallet. And that actually acts as the key for withdrawal. So the owner of that can withdraw the funds. That's it. So that key is what protects those funds from someone being able to just show up and extract the funds from the contract.
All right. Thank you. So now we're going to segue into the sports aspect, and I can finally tell the world the news that is going to make sure Penn State doesn't win this upcoming year. And the Old Dominion University on July 1st, 2022, will be joining the Sun Belt Conference. So we are going to have an undefeated season, and we are going to make it into the college football playoffs.
No, well, you're welcome, because you took our offensive coordinator at the time. Now you're head coach, so you're welcome.
Yeah, so
I gotta say, I don't think an undefeated Sun Belt season is getting you into the CFP unless they expand to 16 teams.
It's not going anywhere. Cincinnati had to work their butts off to get to where they got to. But I did reach out to ODU football, so I did talk to some of my connections that I saw up there. We'll see what ends up happening now, and if not, as it gets closer to the season, I'll probably reach out to some of the players and some of the people that work within like the front offices over there, just to see if we can either get some of them on the show, or even, of course, the big game that comes up, Virginia Tech against ODU. I'm still working on that as well. Switching gears, I want to talk about basketball. So Steve and I didn't get to talk about this before, but Steve and I went to the Lakers and Wizards game. So I want to talk about that. But before I go to that, I have to say, Steve and I always talk about who's like the best player you've ever seen play in person, who's like the most skilled person you've seen. And up until yesterday, I would have said either like Patrick Mahomes or LeBron James or someone like that. This person is not the best player ever, but to see him switch gears from being in a slump to going hot in the third quarter, DeMar DeRozan did something I've never seen before. Like DeMar DeRozan, if anyone watched the game, yes, they played the Wizards. I don't care about that aspect, but he was missing so many shots. He also reminds me of Kawhi Leonard, because my man does not talk like on the court. He is very quiet. He will look at the ref. He's the kid in school that doesn't want to get in trouble, but will like make the face behind the teacher, because he'll just be like, and I'm like, yo, he's really not talking. He's just upset. Meanwhile, like you have Zach LaVine and like Alex Caruso that are talking, but he went off for over $30. I mean, not $30, 30 points. And it was amazing to see the third quarter he had. He was not missing. Like everybody knew every single shot was going in when that happened. We saw LeBron, and he had to work so much harder than DeMar DeRozan had ever had to work for his shots. Any shot DeMar took.
But it still looked effortless, though.
It looked effortless, seeing LeBron do it, but you could just tell he had to put out so much energy. But when somebody is on, he could have his eyes closed and he's going to make it. But in terms of the Lakers, Wizards, what were your thoughts on the game? And don't say Frank Vogel should be fired, because we all know he will be fired.
I mean, and this is like a deeper dive into going to games like this. Like, we all know that LeBron, Russ, guys like that are elite players. Even though the Lakers suck, Russ has been struggling this season. Like, they're still, the elite players in the NBA skill wise. But it's like it's one thing to go to the game and just watch it. But if you like understand the X's and O's of the sport you're going to watch, we all have our sport that we're, that we think we're, basically pros at watching and like understanding schemes and how things work and everything. Going to watch LeBron do anything he wants to at 37 and drop 25 in the first half like it was nothing, and just his court vision and all that stuff is just like, it's so much different in person than it is on TV. I don't know if it's just like you're just more focused on it when you're there, because like you're there for a reason. Like when you're at home watching the game, you can go get up and do something else. You're not forced to sit there and watch it. But when you're at the game, like that's why you're there. And that's why we went there, because it was LeBron. The other thing is Russell Westbrook still has that second and third gear. like he still has, like he can blow by anybody, even though he's like not doing it, not putting up those numbers that we remember him putting up for MVP seasons. Like he still does it. Melo hit a couple threes to the dome. That was cool to see. But like, it's just, you know, we take those guys for granted all the time because like when they go in slumps or they're on a bad team, whatever, you just kind of forget about them, or like you just want to bash them all the time. But I mean, seeing that type of shit in person it's like when I took you to go see Saquon Barkley in person, like, or when I took my brother-in-law to go see Saquon in person. It's just like, it's just different. Like, you know that you're witnessing something that's like better than every other person on the field, court, whatever it might be. So, I mean, it wasn't ideally how I thought we were going to spend that Saturday, but it was still super dope. Hopefully we can eventually see him again next year, maybe to come back this way. But I mean, that was fucking awesome.
Yeah,
for sure.
AG, what are your thoughts on the Lakers this year?
Oh, it's been fun to watch. I mean, I'm a Warriors fan, so.
How'd you become a Warriors fan? Because that's like me. Like I'm a huge Pistons fan, and like my dad's side of the family was all from. Shut up, Christian. My dad's side of the family is all from Pittsburgh. So like, you know, I wasn't a Philly fan growing up for anything. So I saw the Pistons and Sixers play in like 2000 or 2001 in a random exhibition game. Pistons won. I just gravitated towards them because I was like, oh, cool, they beat the Sixers. Like, great, this is my team now. So that's how I became
yourself away.
I mean, I grew up a Warriors fan. I grew up in Oakland, so
okay.
I suffered plenty through the years. The Andres Biedrins, Donald Foyle, Bobby Sura years. I went to Joe Smith basketball camp as a kid.
Wow.
I was an OG Warriors fan, so it's been a lot of fun the last few years getting to actually finally watch some success.
Yeah, I'm going through. Not that I'm going through now the struggle bus with the Pistons, but hey, we got a young core that we're bound to. It's bound to blow up in a couple of years. Anyway, they're going to trade everybody minus Cade, but yeah, it's fucking Pistons.
I think Cade's going to be fun to build around though.
He better be like,
he's a lot of fun.
He's legit, but I just hope that they get some good pieces in there. I wish they would have. They were heading towards a tank this season, but then somehow they started winning games, and like unfortunately they aren't going to be in that position anymore. But I really hope that they get some pieces and they can maybe, you know, slide into that play-in tournament next year and just get better and better every year. Yeah. I pray that they do.
Pull a Grizzlies.
Yeah.
The Grizzlies. The Grizz. Yeah.
That team came up randomly. As a Grizzlies fan, I was not expecting that to happen. Last year, you knew it was good. I'm sorry to hear about Jonas because I thought he would be there for all of this. But we got the human Aquaman himself and Steven Adams, who can do no wrong.
Now that he's in Memphis, it's Stephon Adams.
Oh, it's Stephon. That's right.
Adams. Yep. Stephon Adams. Yep.
Before I switch, I want to end up just letting everyone know, after seeing, I'm not a doctor, but seeing Zach LaVine, he's not healthy. Like, he's not fully healthy yet. And he kind of was just out there on a back-to-back. It was one of those things that my man had like 0 points going into the third quarter. And then, of course, he had his dunk, but it wasn't one of his Zach LaVine dunks that he's used to end up having. But the Bulls, if anyone has a chance to ever see them at warmups, I would highly suggest it because they have a lot of high flyers that are there. Of course, they have like Javonte Green. I forget.
The Caruso.
Yeah, Caruso's there too.
The homie.
I sent the picture to Steven just of his back and a headband. There's only one person out there it could clearly be, and that's Caruso. But
future friend of the show.
Yeah, we'll get Caruso on the show. He'll end up doing it. He's friends with Steven. I'll do rapid fire real quick in the NFL just for different things that happened. John Harbaugh signed a 3-year extension. The big one was the rule change that the Eagles and the Colts end up submitting. And now both teams will be able to possess the ball in overtime, which is they have, of course, the Tom Brady rule. Now they'll have the Josh Allen rule, because the big thing was the Kansas City Chiefs and Bills game. What if the Bills end up getting the ball? That's always going to be up for debate as to what will happen. Another thing is Lamar Jackson has not signed his contract. And a big thing for that is some people are saying he's betting on himself. I will say they kind of did play some cards with Harbaugh signing his 3-year extension as to what might end up happening with Lamar Jackson. But Lamar is his own agent, technically, like his family is his agent. So we'll see what ends up going on in terms of that. I personally, as someone that has tickets to them every single year, they just need to sign a damn receiver. That's really all they need. They do everything else perfectly fine. They just have no damn receivers. They have running backs. They have Mark Andrews. You get a receiver outside of Des Bryant or Sammy Watkins or Hollywood Brown, you guys will be fine. Like, you have one of the best kickers, if not the best kicker in the league. So all you need to do is get to the 35, 40-yard line and you'll get 3 points regardless. So just end up doing that because they have an exciting year coming up. If anyone's looked at the home games potential, they look very exciting as to who they could end up playing. Here, Taysom Hill, they said will be focusing on the tight end position. I promise you that was not his decision. That was definitely coach's decision. And that also switches his contract around. So that's something else. And the final thing we will end up saying in terms of football, the Bills announced that they agreed on a 30-year deal for a $1.4 billion stadium. Yeah, so that's a lot. They won't break ground until 2026. And that's all with the NFL. I want to
no dome either. No dome on this $1.4 billion stadium in Buffalo.
That's wild. And the reason they said was because it's a Buffalo feel to have it like that. What? At least that is cold.
At least get something like retractable. Like for that kind of money, exactly. at least get something that moves. Like, it doesn't have to be cool like the Falcon Stadium, like swirls and shit, but like, come on, bro. I mean, like, I know it's Buffalo and like that's what it does up there. It snows 300 days a year, basically. But like, come on, give them something.
You're kind of thinking that Josh Allen is going to play till he's 100 because there's not many quarterbacks that are going to be built like Josh Allen that'll be able to withstand the elements. I don't know when they're going to have a running game, so who really knows? You got Stephon Diggs up there, which will also.
When they trade for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, that's not happening. Saquon, I don't know. Saquon and Christian McCaffrey.
# free Saquon.
Yeah. So that's the wild story. We'll keep up to date on what the hell is going to happen there. I feel bad for all the construction workers. The two places I feel bad for, the ones that built the Vegas Stadium and the ones that are building the Buffalo Bills Stadium, because one is hot as shit. The other one is going to be cold as fuck. I don't know which one you want to end up building a stadium in. But the final one is we're going to talk about the NCAA tournament. I didn't get to fully watch all the games on Sunday because I was at my friend's wedding and there was no service in the woods. So we were all trying to figure out who has the best Wi-Fi to figure out what's happening. Thankfully, it was just UNC that was beating St. Peter's by 20, unlike if it was a closer game. Yeah, but Steven and AG, I'll go with AG to start. What are your thoughts on the Final Four lineup that is there and then also the games that happen?
Oh, man, I was sad to see St. Peter's fall. They just came out flat. They came out real flat. I think, you know, the pressure eventually gets to you, and they were a team that struggled to play from behind. Foul trouble the whole game, and so it was tough to watch. But huge congrats to them. Huge, kudos to that run. Amazing. I mean, I'm excited for the Final Four. You got 4 blue bloods. What could you ask for?
I'm gonna interrupt you real quick because I really want to get this out there, and I've been thinking about this since I saw it. Is Villanova a blue blood? Because
they're going for their 3rd championship in 6 years.
But when I think of blue bloods, and someone else laid this out when I saw him on Twitter, someone laid out Kentucky, Carolina, Duke, UCLA, and Kansas as the blue bloods. Now that's because, like, if you go back in the history of college basketball and you think of like the best teams and coaches and players, everything, usually they stem from those programs. Now, I will say, yes, Villanova has been probably the most dominant team of the last, 10 years, maybe record wise. Like Gonzaga is up there too, but they shit the bed every year. But that's expected. But now, are we gonna put the blue blood title with them? Like, I'm okay with it, but are we gonna put them up there with the other like Carolina and Duke and UCLA? Or
all right, so I'll go out on a limb here. I think this is how I define blue bloods, because I look at it not as, did you have a John Wooden back in the day?
Sure.
Eventually, there have to be new blue bloods.
Yeah,
so I look at it and say the dominance, has it spanned the lifetimes of the kids actually on the teams? Did they grow up looking at these teams saying, yeah, that's a program that I would want to be part of? And
I would
think
answer
that's
that with
how
a
I
yes.
look at it. And I look at it, I think the Jay Wright era is probably pushing 20 years now. He's been there. So those kids on that team, I think, Jay Wright to me took that Villanova program to the next level. And I think he turned them into a blue blood. And I think that's the definition I like to go with is, have you had a stretch, a run in the last 20 years, 18 to 22 years that puts you in the upper echelons, a perennial top 10 team who contends for national championships.
So
and I think Villanova's that.
So within my group of friends, because Penn State basketball's sucks. They're on the come up though. I'm telling you, they're on the come up. They'll be in the NCAA tournament next couple of years. But like growing up, sure, we're Penn State basketball fans because we live there. But you kind of gravitated towards another team. Like I gravitated towards North Carolina. Friends who gravitated towards Duke, and you always bought the gear and everything. And the other thing is like, did you have like that type of impact? Like, does that like program have that type of impact? And I did know a bunch of guys who would walk around with some Villanova gear. And that was like back in like, middle school and getting into high school. So yeah, they've been around for like definitely a hot second with their dominance. It's just like recently that they've like, crossed over that threshold of like winning national titles and everything and whatnot. So I think they're like, those other schools are like here in terms of the blue bloods, but I think they're definitely closing the gap, if you will, on
call them the new bloods. Call them
the new bloods. Yeah, I like that. Now, if they win this year and knock out one of the blue bloods and then knock out another one, yeah, I think you can probably just put them up there. But I saw that argument.
You're saying you're a Carolina fan. How are you feeling about Carolina as an 8 seed sneaking in there? Underseeded, overseeded? What does this run look like to you? What does it mean?
I think they were underseeded. I think they're playing like it too. I think they've been a good team for most of the season. It took a while for them to start really kind of playing like Carolina basketball. But I don't think it matters because I think this game is going to be rigged anyways towards Duke. I've already conceded that Carolina's going to lose. Like it doesn't matter. I think, and I'm being like dead at. You can ask Christian this type of shit. I go all in on. Like I'm dead serious about this. Like I think the refs' pockets are going to be very heavy with Coach K's money, with Duke money. Like there's going to be calls, and it's just not even going to be surprising at some points in the game that it's going towards Duke. I'm wholeheartedly waiting for it to happen, and like I said, I've already conceded that Carolina's going to lose. I hope I'm wrong. Like I'm but everyone loves a good conspiracy theory and a good game rigging. But yeah, it's been fun. Like I usually pick Carolina to go to the Final Four and then to win the national title
this year.
Even if they're not in the tournament, I still pick them to go to win national title game. But I picked with my head this year, not my heart, which my wife still gives me shit about. Not picking Carolina, but
damn Purdue.
Yeah, I did. I picked
and you
too.
messed me up.
Yeah, fuck Jaden Ivey.
Everyone was so high on Purdue. I mean, Jaden Ivey, he's gonna be a stud.
Man, and then that dude who's 7'4", 250 didn't do shit.
No, they couldn't keep him on the court. They literally had to take him off the court.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, like I'm very happy with where Carolina has gotten. Now, I really wish they were playing one of the other two teams because, like, of all teams to lose to in the Final Four, losing to Duke would just suck. But again, I'm 100% expecting it to happen.
Yeah,
I'm interested. Oh, go ahead.
Now, if that all happens, if there's those calls that, I think a lot of people think Duke will eventually get, you heard it here first. Just remember.
I'll be on the lookout for it.
Just remember who started spreading the conspiracy theory. It was me.
The big thing that I can say, I'll end up saying that they were underrated and also underseeded, but I think they were thinking like me in terms of the whole Coach Roy Williams era, how they always played. This is a total different basketball play that they play now. Yeah, Coach Davis, I had this assumption. I told Steven, I was like, they just chose someone that's going to be similar to like Coach Williams, and he
Totally
brought
different.
out his own scheme. Like these players are running up and down the court. They look more like how the Tyus Jones, Austin Rivers, and like Kyrie Irving, those Duke players would play. They would run. I was used to like the Tyler Hansborough, the Raymond Felton, Sean May. It was a slow game.
They started like that in the beginning of the
Yeah.
season. They started playing that way with like just trying to get Baycott all the touches down low, and then they realized that they had RJ Davis and Caleb Love who can both play point guard. They can both play off the point. So I mean, Baycott's still snagging a double every game. Got 20-20 last game. So I think once they started figuring that out, and they got blown out in the beginning of the season by a bunch of teams, Purdue one of those teams, Tennessee one of those teams, and I think as the season went on, they finally started to click everything, and they played more Carolina basketball, Roy Williams style Carolina basketball. Yeah, and that's definitely what's gotten this far. But I mean, I will be beyond hype if they win on Saturday night, like beyond hype.
Only thing
I'll be rooting for him with you. I mean, that would be amazing to see.
Also, like, who doesn't want Duke to lose? I mean, like outside of people, yeah. I mean, like, first of all, I don't hate Coach K, which is weird. Like usually if I like Ohio State, I hate everything associated with the scarlet and gray. Hate everything. Duke, I don't hate Coach K. I just hate Duke in general. Like just like the program, the players, hate them all. I don't feel like there's anything to hate about Coach K. Like he doesn't piss me off.
You got to respect his career.
Yeah,
I gotta say, you got to respect the guy who can win 1,200 games or whatever, stick around till he's 75. That is impressive. Yeah, that's a love of basketball that I don't think any of us, can even understand.
No, but there's no one outside of the people who live in Cameron, North Carolina, who want Duke to win. There's no one. Everyone wants him to lose. It's great. I love it. Absolutely love it.
So
gotta root for the underdog too.
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely.
I'll close this one out and then we'll give our last thoughts. But UNC, if it's going to be a close game, I'm picking against UNC. I saw it when they lost their players because of foul trouble, and then of course their player got ejected from the game. They could not make a shot at the end of the game. I was like, damn, y'all are really going to lose this game because you have nobody that they can't close out a game. They need at least like 5 to 10 points for them to consider a win. If it's close and their players are out, Davis was not doing it at that point. Mm-hmm. And I love the Tar Heels more than anything, but they have everything. They just don't have that assassin that you need to end up finishing out a game. And that's something I think that has lacked, which I will always credit Coach K for. He always has that one player that you can always turn to for that last shot. And it's not even one of those, who's it going to be? The player's going to tell you, I want the ball. I don't think I don't think the Tar Heels fully have that person yet that will say, I want the ball. It'll be players that, all right, I think you should take it. But it's not one of those, everyone in the arena knows who it's going to be type of thing. Finishing all this up, we always end up finishing with our thoughts or what you got for everybody. So, Steven, what you got for everyone?
Just a quick shout out to everyone who hit me up, call, text, whatever, checking on the fam, mainly the family, not me. But I appreciate you, yourself included, Christian, checking in on the kids, the wife, making sure everyone's all good. So had some people drop off some stuff at the house. So we had my son's birthday was a week ago or a week and a half ago. So we had another COVID birthday with him. So we still celebrated, but appreciate all the well wishes along the way from everybody.
Yeah. AG, what you have for everyone to close out?
I just want to say a big thank you to you guys for hosting here, bringing me on. Been a ton of fun talking with you guys, getting to know you guys. But I would say if you're interested in kind of changing the narrative around NIL, signingday.xyz, go sponsor a player, go check it out, go figure out, kind of how it works. Find a player to sponsor, find a player you love that you want to go support. Every men's and women's player in the tournament, sponsorable. And then go tell them about it and get them signed. And if you want to pile onto the Doug Eddard hype train, go sponsor him. We're closing in on a deal here for him to autograph all those NFTs. So if you're looking for a Doug Eddard autograph, this might be your best bet for it. Signingday.xyz.
Yeah. So I'll close it out, and Steven will know where this joke is going, but I'll end up saying the serious one. I have to say, shout out, one, and congratulations to my friend for getting married over the weekend. That was a big thing for them, although we all knew that it was going to end up happening. Another thing is shout out to all the Solana NFTs. And my final one is, so before we started, I asked all the different guests that we have on the show, what do you want me to call it? What do you want me to call you? And I don't know why in my head went, Stephen, we were talking to AG and he told us what he wanted him to call him. I thought of Nutella Liquor.
Yeah.
And I was like, this man better not say, call me.
No, I can't.
Because he
even,
really said that serious.
even.
And I had to do it the whole time on the show. I was like, you know, this is, I don't know how many times I can
like,
do this.
I'm cool with calling anyone whatever they want to be called, but there's a line I draw.
There's a line.
There's a line like AG, like that's cool, man. Like KG, AG, like that's good. Like I'm so down for that. I'll call you that. But if you said something else, like Nutella Liquor, I don't know. Like I don't know what I would have done.
Serious.
I don't know what I would have done.
You got to keep the pseudo clean.
Yeah, please, like G rated, like G, not PG, but G.
Yeah, you got to assume that you're gonna make it as a pseudo. What do you want the New York Times?
Yeah,
to
and
be
that's gonna carry you.
referencing?
Yeah, that's gonna carry you through every single for the rest of your time. Yep.
Yeah,
Totally
I can
agree.
promise you that one's not going to go too far. No hate to I don't even know who the human being behind it is, but that sounded more like a video game name. And I was like, you got to be joking. Like, I really have to say it. And I had to be serious. Steven over here didn't even have to say it ever. He was just like, so, yeah.
I was sitting like this the whole time trying not to laugh, but like, and you said it like because you kept asking questions. You had to say it to like know who you were referencing to.
Exactly.
So he kept saying it. Like, I don't know how you held it together that entire time. I was overly
I still
impressive.
think about it every time. Like, you're not really saying that.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's all we have for today. Again, make sure to stay tuned for the Twitter space we will have coming up. Go check out signing day. This is something that is big and will help out a lot of college athletes as well. So again, thank you to signing day and AG and Christian Steven. We out.
Peace.